Hello and welcome to the Pattern Disruption Lab. My name is Michelle Douglas, your empowerment and transformation coach, identity change specialist and chief pattern disruptor. I help people like you to identify and interrupt the subconscious patterns that keep creating the same frustrating results so that you can experience greater abundance, confidence and freedom. Now let's get into today's episode. Hello and welcome. As you can see, things are looking a little bit different around here right now, and that's because we have rebranded. Well, I have anyway. So today we are going to be talking about why we keep repeating the same money patterns. I've done a heck of a lot of work lately around identifying and disrupting patterns, because these patterns are basically what's causing all of the problems we've got in our lives. So this is what we're going to talk about today, in particular around money patterns. So by the end of this episode, you will understand why knowing what to do with money does not always change what you actually do, and how that financial identity, or that identity that you've got running underneath the surface, influences your behavior and how to interrupt that repeating pattern this week. Have you ever decided that this time is the time you're finally going to handle money differently? You're going to start creating different results. Maybe you're going to start a new savings plan, or maybe you're going to start charging what you're worth, or maybe you're going to follow through on that idea that might actually make you some money. Or even maybe you're going to stop spending your spare cash because you had endured a mildly inconvenient Wednesday. You know what you should do. You've probably read all the books, you've downloaded the budgeting spreadsheet, and you've repeated affirmations about being a powerful money magnet. Yet somehow those money patterns are keeping you stuck. So it's a different month, maybe a different circumstance, but you keep creating the same result. It's like you're in this perpetual cycle that you just can't get out of. So today we are going to look at why that happens. If you're repeating some sort of financial pattern, it's not because you're lazy, it's not because you're lacking discipline or you're lacking information or anything like that. It's often connected to your financial identity. And this is your emotional responses and what your subconscious mind believes is safe. So a lot of the time you have no idea why you do what you do. And today's episode is going to be about looking into that and what we can do about it. So welcome to the Pattern Disruption Lab, our new title. You know who I am. I introduced myself at the beginning. And in this episode, we're going to be exploring why knowing what to do with money does not guarantee that you will actually do it, no matter how logical it seems. It's really annoying. So we're going to be looking at, and I'm going to be looking at my notes here so I don't forget everything. So what your financial identity is, how your beliefs influence your thoughts, emotions, and actions. This is really, really important. Some common examples of financial self-sabotage, the hidden protection behind money patterns, how my team framework applies to financial change, and one practical pattern interrupt that you can use this week to start the process of getting out of those patterns that have been holding you back, probably for many, many years. So a quick note before we begin: not every financial difficulty is caused by mindset alone. The cost of living is real, unexpected expenses come up, employment circumstances may influence things, maybe your health or family responsibility or access to opportunities. They can all affect your financial circumstances and outcomes. And this episode is not about blaming yourself for every financial mistake you've ever made in your entire life. It's about recognizing those patterns and knowing that they are within your influence, which is really the good news about all of this, because this is where your power lies. So the first thing we're going to talk about is why knowing what to do does not guarantee you will actually do it. Most of us know some practical things we could do to improve our financial situation, such as spending less than you earn. These are pretty logical. Some say you should save regularly, or avoid buying things you don't need, or charging properly for your work, or following up with potential clients, applying for better paying opportunities, stop pretending that unopened bills cease to exist. The information is not usually the entire problem. If knowledge automatically changed behaviour, every person who had ever read a health book would be healthy, fit, and fabulous. Every business owner would post consistently, and nobody would ever own exercise equipment that doubled as a clothes hanger. So knowing happens in the conscious mind. It's what you know you know. Behaviour is also influenced by subconscious beliefs, though, emotional responses, identity, and learned associations as well. And this is where the problem lies. So you may consciously know that checking your bank account would help you to feel more organised, but if checking it triggers shame, fear, or panic, then you may want to avoid it, because we're either wanting to achieve pleasure or avoid pain. And so we tend to act based on what your desire is in that moment. You may consciously know that raising your prices could increase your income, but if charging more activates fears about judgment, rejection, or disappointing people, then you may continue undercharging. You do not simply act according to what you know. You often act according to what feels emotionally safe, familiar, or believable. So here's a question for you. Where in your financial life do you already know what to do but struggle to do it consistently? I know for me it was about content. Like you can see, I've not posted a podcast episode for a year. There's a problem. So yeah, it's things like that. So it's about becoming aware of where those patterns are first. This pattern's really useful because it helps to separate a knowledge gap from a pattern as well. If you genuinely do not know what to do, you may need some form of education or a training course or a practical support, and that's fine. But if you do know what to do and repeatedly avoid it, delay it, or undo it, then there may be something deeper driving that behavior. So just keep an eye on that. So let's talk about what financial identity is. So your financial identity is the collection of beliefs, expectations, and emotional associations that you hold about yourself and money. It helps to shape what feels normal for you. It influences how much money you believe you can earn, receive, manage, keep, and enjoy. Your financial identity may also include beliefs such as, from my list, I am terrible with money. Money never stays. I always end up back at zero. I have to work hard for every dollar. People like me do not become wealthy. I cannot trust myself to make good financial decisions. Earning more money will create more pressure. If I become successful, people will expect more from me. Wanting money makes me selfish. I am always the person who helps everyone else. That might be me. Another one I also had a little while back was around, if I become successful in business, then I'm going to be really busy and I'll lose my time freedom. So I was avoiding putting myself out there because I was afraid my days would become too full. Anyway, it's these little subconscious patterns behind the scenes here that make you go, oh my goodness, why am I doing this to myself? So most people did not consciously sit down one afternoon and choose these beliefs. They developed through experiences. You may have absorbed messages from your family, especially when you were very young, before the age of 7. Perhaps money was spoken about with stress. Many wealthy people were criticized. Maybe spending was associated with love, reward, or comfort. And that can actually be a negative thing as well for some people. Maybe asking for money created conflict. Maybe you watch someone gain money and then lose it. Maybe financial success came with exhaustion, responsibility, or relationship problems. Your mind notices these experiences and starts creating rules because it wants to avoid pain, right? So it sees these things in your external world and goes, oh, okay, we need to make sure that we don't let that happen to us. So then you start creating these beliefs that money's difficult, it creates arguments, it makes life harder, it's safer not to have too much. And these rules can continue operating even when your conscious goals have changed. So a useful distinction here is your financial identity is not necessarily the truth about who you are. It's a pattern of beliefs you have practiced, reinforced, or inherited, and anything practiced can begin to be practiced differently. And this is where your power lies. So now let's talk about how beliefs create repeated financial behavior. This is where we look at the chain reaction. So your identity influences your beliefs influence your thoughts influence your emotions, and your emotions influence your behaviors, your actions, and your reactions. And this is the big part because it impacts your physical reality. Okay, so let's look at an example here. So imagine you're offered an opportunity to work with a higher paying client. Your financial identity might include the belief, I'm not experienced enough to charge that amount. That belief creates a thought such as, what if they expect too much, more than I can deliver? What if they realize I'm not as capable as they think I am? And these thoughts create anxiety. The anxiety then affects your actions. So you may lower your price, add extra services for free, delay responding, over-explain yourself, talk the client out of working with you, decide you need another qualification first. That used to be me. The result is that you earn less or you lose the opportunity. And then your mind uses that outcome as evidence and it says, see, I told you, I'm not the kind of person that earns that sort of money. And the pattern reinforces itself. So it's this perpetual cycle. And here's another example. So let's just say you have a belief that money doesn't stay with you. You receive an unexpected amount of money, and instead of feeling calm, you may feel restless, excited, or uncomfortable. You begin thinking about everything you could buy with that money and you spend it quickly. A few weeks later, you're back to where you started, and the result appears to confirm the belief that money never stays. A lot of lottery winners experience this. So the money didn't simply vanish, it created an emotional response which influenced your behaviour. And this isn't about shame, it's about seeing the sequence clearly enough to interrupt it. So let's just talk about some everyday examples of financial self-sabotage, and I'm sure you will relate to at least one of these, or at least in the past anyway. So it doesn't always look dramatic. It's not necessarily someone taking their entire life savings to the casino while dramatic music plays in the background, and it often looks quite boring, really. So you may avoid financial information. So you don't look at your bank balances, you don't open invoices, you don't look at your bills, you don't like looking at your business numbers. Avoidance provides temporary relief, but it usually increases anxiety later. Undercharging is another. So you set a price and then you panic and then you reduce it. Or you keep adding extras so the client receives roughly the contents of a small department store while only paying the price of a sandwich. The next one is emotional spending. I know a lot of people who do this. So you spend to regulate stress, boredom, loneliness, resentment, or even exhaustion. The purchase creates a temporary emotional shift, and then the original emotion returns, often accompanied by financial regret. The next one is procrastinating on income-producing activities. Now, if you're a small business owner or even a larger business owner, it's really one of those things, especially when you're starting out, that can hold you back. So you spend hours adjusting graphics, reorganizing documents, researching new ideas while avoiding the actual action that's most likely going to generate your income. The logo may now be centered with mathematical precision. Unfortunately, though, no one's been invited to buy anything, and nor do they care how your logo looks. They're looking for a solution to the problem that they're currently experiencing. Constantly changing direction is another one, and I was guilty of this quite some time back. I had so many different things on offer that anyone coming to my website would have gone, whoa, where do I start? So you start one business strategy, course or investment plan or income idea, then uncertainty happens. You abandon it, begin something new. Starting creates hope. Following through creates exposure and responsibility and the possibility of failure. So hence the changing of direction. Rejecting support. Some people, and I may relate to this one a little bit, you struggle to receive help, referrals, opportunities, gifts, or payment. You may be comfortable giving, but receiving activates guilt or discomfort in some way. This happens a lot in relationships as well, I must say. Another one is creating a financial emergency after progress. So you save money, then suddenly feel compelled to spend it. You gain clients and then you stop marketing. You increase your income and then you increase your expenses immediately. The pattern returns you to a familiar financial level. So having listened to all of that, which of these behaviours do you recognise in yourself? So don't ask what's wrong with me. Instead ask what happens emotionally just before I do this. And that question leads us to the hidden protection behind the pattern. So this is where we get into secondary gains. It's the hidden benefit a person receives from maintaining a pattern, but the outcome may be unwanted. So some part of the pattern provides protection, relief, or familiarity. For example, undercharging may protect you from rejection, higher expectations, criticism, feeling responsible for delivering at a higher level. Avoiding your finances may protect you from shame, fear, feeling overwhelmed, or facing a difficult decision. Spending money quickly may protect you from the responsibility of managing that money, fear of losing it later. Feeling different from your family, the discomfort of having more than you used to. Not promoting your work may protect you from visibility, judgment, success, the possibility of trying fully and still not getting the result you want. This is why repeating patterns can feel so confusing. You want the result consciously, but another part of you is trying to protect you from what it believes the result might bring. The subconscious mind generally prefers familiar discomfort to unfamiliar possibility. Familiar does not mean pleasant. It means predictable. And if it's predictable, you're not likely to die. And that's what your subconscious is thinking, because it's trying to keep you alive without all of those horrible things happening to you if you just dare to step forward into a life you actually want. Okay, so let's ask ourselves some questions here. So I'm going to read these out and ponder them for a moment. You may want to pause this episode as you ponder each one, or you may want to listen to the lot, then maybe go back and review each question. So the first one, what might change if I had more money? Next one, what responsibility might come with it? Who might react differently to me? What would I no longer be able to avoid? What would I have to believe about myself? And what does this current pattern help me to escape or postpone? So we're not trying to justify the pattern here. We're just trying to understand why it's there, what it's protecting you from. And once you know the perceived threat, you can address that directly instead of simply demanding more discipline from yourself, because it's not the way to go. Once you know the perceived threat, you can now address that directly instead of simply demanding more discipline from yourself. Now we're just going to touch on the team framework for a moment. So the team framework is an acronym for thoughts plus emotions plus actions equals the manifestation. I've talked about this many times in the past. So in the manifestation world, it's often discussed as though thoughts alone create your physical results. Thoughts do matter, your emotional state matters, but your actions matter too. They need to be working together to create whatever it is you want to create. So if you repeatedly take actions that reinforce an old identity, you are likely to keep producing evidence for that identity. So for example, you affirm that you're open to abundance, but you avoid sending invoices. You visualize a successful business, but you do not make offers. You say you trust yourself with money, but you refuse to look at your bank accounts. You repeat that you are worthy of receiving, but when someone offers to pay you, you immediately discount the price or say, oh no, it doesn't matter. We don't want your money, sort of thing. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions are pulling in different directions, and this creates an internal mismatch. Congruence means your thoughts, emotions, and actions begin supporting the same direction, so they're all focused on that same outcome. So it doesn't mean you have to feel completely confident before taking action, because confidence often develops once you start taking the action. You can still feel nervous and still send the proposal. You can feel uncomfortable and still check the account. You can feel uncertain and still leave the money in savings. The goal is not emotional perfection. The goal is a more aligned response. And it's this alignment with the goal and with what feels right for you that's really, really important here. So from a metaphysical perspective, You might imagine there's a potential version of your life where you handle money calmly, earn more consistently, and trust yourself to make financial decisions, and good ones at that. You move towards that possibility through identity-aligned actions. Each action is a vote for the person you are becoming. And it's not a vote cast once during a particularly inspiring Sunday either. It's repeated votes. That is how a new identity gains evidence. It's through that repetition, that consistency. Okay, so let's look at one practical pattern interrupt that you can implement this week. Choose one repeating money behaviour. So keep it small and specific. So you might avoid the bank account, you might spend when you're stressed, you might discount your work, delay an invoice, avoid a sales conversation, abandoning your plan when you feel uncertain, that sort of thing. Now use this 4-step process. So step 1 is to notice. Identify the moment the urge appears. I want to avoid looking at this. I want to lower my price. I want to buy something because I feel stressed. Step 2, name it. Name the pattern without judging yourself. So this is my avoidance pattern. This is the part of me that connects charging properly with rejection. This is the pattern that spends money to create emotional relief. Naming the pattern helps you to step out of that automatic behavior because you're now aware of it. So it's no longer automatic, it becomes conscious. Step 3 is to ask, what is this pattern trying to protect me from? Don't overthink it. The first honest response may be enough. It might be, I'm feeling embarrassed, being told no, having to take responsibility, feeling deprived, being visible. And another big one for a lot of people is being judged by others. Okay, step 4, choose a different action. And this is the big one. Take the smallest action that supports what you want to practice. So you might look at the bank account for 2 minutes, maybe send the invoice, wait until tomorrow before buying, keep the original price, follow up with one person, transfer $10 into savings, review one expense without trying to solve everything. The action is not meant to transform your entire life in one afternoon. It's meant to show your mind that another response is available. So now I invite you to follow this weekly experiment. For the next 7 days, keep a simple note on your phone. Write down the trigger, the thought, the emotion, the usual action, and the new action you chose. So you're going to keep that saved there so you can use that as a template for if it happens while you're out and about, I guess. So you're gathering evidence, you're learning how the pattern operates, and you're practicing becoming someone who responds differently. So to close us off today, let's bring this all together. Knowing what to do does not always change behavior because behavior is also influenced by identity, beliefs, emotions, and what your mind believes is safe. Your financial identity influences what feels normal and possible. Your thoughts create emotional responses. Your emotions influence your actions, and repeated actions contribute to repeated results. A money pattern may also contain a hidden form of protection. It may help you to avoid judgment, responsibility, disappointment, visibility, or uncertainty. It doesn't mean you have to keep it. It means that you can stop treating the behavior as a personal failure and begin understanding what drives it. So this week, choose one repeating behavior, notice it, name it, ask what it's protecting you from, then choose one small identity-aligned action. And that's how you begin creating evidence for a different financial reality. So if you are wondering which subconscious financial identity pattern may be shaping your decisions, take my financial identity pattern quiz. It will help you to identify the financial pattern that is likely to be influencing your thoughts, emotional responses, and behavior around money. You can find the quiz at empoweredlifeprograms.com/identity quiz. The link's in the episode show notes. It is much easier to change a pattern once you can actually see what has been wandering around in the background, making financial decisions without supervision. So thank you for joining me in the Pattern Disruption Lab. If this episode helped you to recognize one of your own patterns, share it with someone who keeps saying, I know what I should do, but why am I not doing it? And remember, the aim is not to solve your entire financial life today, Just notice a pattern, choose a different response, and let that action become the evidence of who you are becoming. See you next time.